Restaurants across South Africa are being urged to join a nationwide protest next Wednesday, that is July the 22nd, this as their pleas for eased restrictions in the industry appear to be falling on deaf ears, they say. This as eateries and their staff have endured, as you know, a torrid time during lockdown. They are currently struggling with strict operating guidelines. To speak to us now is David Schneider, who is a chef and co-owner of a warehouse at Maison Franschhoek. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Mr. Schneider. So, the protest, by all accounts, how is it going? Do you think that you're going to have a large showing?
I think the important thing is that it's not all about a protest. It's just about doing something. You know, I think we've been very patient, and I think, and this by no means my initiative or any one person's initiative to actually have a protest. I see it's the popular thing to do nowadays, but it's better than doing nothing. You know, at the moment, yes, I think a lot is falling on deaf ears, and it's not about the restrictions just on the restaurants. They've also placed restrictions on with the curfew. They've placed restrictions on accommodation, so therefore no one can travel within their own province. I've had multiple cancellations at my restaurant in Franschhoek. Just because people can't stay over the night anymore. And it's causing this ripple effect throughout the entire industry. And,
so, Mr. Schneider, you said earlier on, I want to just highlight this point. You said that you feel that your pleas are falling on deaf ears. You've had various engagements with government. What has been the response during those engagements? The President saying that there was a need to review the restrictions, the regulations, especially in terms of level 3, because of the increase in cases. So was there at least a tete-a-tete before that to say, look, we know that these are ongoing talks, but we have to take this move?
It's an understandable move to take. It makes sense in one spectrum, but to treat the restaurants, now the restaurants are the ones being responsible. We have guests that aren't falling out of our door. They having one bottle of wine over 3 hours, and they're walking out the door. They arrive in an Uber, they leave in an Uber. We practice safe measuring distances, and all the sanitation practices are in place. So you are punishing the people that are following the rules. And it's elsewhere where people are staying out, drinking alcohol late at night, on days that they're not permitted to. They are not following the social distancing protocol. They're not sanitizing. Now, these places need to be punished separate from us. And the restaurants, the hard-working individuals, they're the ones that are being punished here. Because I can promise you that in those, in the townships and the neighborhoods, in the places that are not following all the strict protocols, it's business as usual tonight.
So, Mr. Schneider, let's make a distinction here. You say you are being punished, and you acknowledge that there are people who are not following regulations. Should government really take responsibility for people not taking regulations? Yes, I mean, following regulations. Yes, they ought to be policing, but there's also an outcry when the police and the SANDF do that. So why do you feel that restaurants specifically are being targeted? Because when you use language like "we are being punished," that's what it assumes.
I don't think that we're being targeted. We're just being part of the collective whole. And I don't think that's fair when you take establishments such as mine and establishments such as the ones of all my friends and all my peers and all my family in the industry. And I don't think we are being targeted, but we are being brought into the collective whole. And that's definitely short-sightedness, And that's definitely not the way that we need to be.
How should you then be exempt from these regulations? You said you were being punished, and now you're saying that you're obviously not being targeted, but you're being put into the collective whole. So there's obviously a lot of industries, a lot of people who have suffered. You want people to use the hashtag jobs saves lives. So how should you then be exempt from these regulations that you should feel that you are able to continue with your livelihood even though others aren't?
Well, there's absolutely no authority arriving at my restaurant making sure that I'm keeping up with any of the protocols. So if they're not doing it at my establishment, I know for a fact that they won't be doing it elsewhere. And we just following the rules because that's the rules. But we are not being governed, we are not being audited, we are not being checked. If there could be some sort of an auditing process where we could pass and get a permit to be able to serve food and serve alcohol because we're following the right protocols, surely that makes more sense in a system which progression is our main goal. At the moment, it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back.
Just in terms of the decision that government had to take, the president was very clear. It's because of the exponential rise in COVID-19 cases. Alcohol has been found to be a major contributor of not only denying people who desperately need beds because of COVID-19 in hospitals, because of various incidents that involve violence. So alcohol, it seems, for government is off the table until there is a change. Do you feel that should you be allowed to operate as a eatery that sells food without alcohol, that you'll still be able to manage? Would that please you?
The entire model will then have to change, the business model itself, because the business model, number one, is a restaurant is designed to be 100% full at least 5 days a week. Number two, you need to sell alcohol because that's where you make your markup. These are age-old rules in the industry that without, I don't think that there's any longevity. Otherwise, food is just simply going to become, unaffordable in restaurants. The prices will have to go up to the degree. If you look at the business model of a restaurant, it's flawed to begin with, and that's why so many restaurants are closing at the moment. Restaurants on average making a 5% profit margin, and now you want to take their biggest money earner away from them, which is the alcohol. And I can assure you that not a single one of those hospital beds are taken up by any one of my customers.
David Schneider, chef and co-owner of warehouse at Maison Franschhoek, speaking on behalf of the restaurateurs. There's a call for them to be out in protest next week, Wednesday, as he says he feels that government is unfairly punishing them in the wider scheme of its regulations.